Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Basketball PH podcast. Enjoy the show.
Hello, what is up mga paps? Welcome to the Fantasy Basketball PH, your Filipino brand of fantasy basketball. Again, this is your fantasy papi, Papi Ro. Yo, what's up? Finally, nagkaroon na naman tayo ng time na maglabas ng content. And then, this specific episode, balik tayo dun sa ginagawa natin way back, like yung mga first seasons natin. We actually kind of like do our usual na Q&A. So for this episode, sagutin natin lahat ng mga pwedeng yung i-raise na questions. Also gonna browse dun sa ating fantasy group kasi may mga question dun sa ating fantasy group as well dun sa page. So we could answer those. And then yun, tambay lang tayo dito. And this specific episode, so weekly natin gagawin to. Every Thursdays, we will going to conduct Q&As. And then, ang gagawin natin para naman hindi ako solo gaming lagi, I'm going to ask several random guests to join us every week. So, for this week, it's going to be fun kasi ito you already kind of like, nag-i-English ako, so alam nyo na yan. So, you already knew him in our weekly episodes. And if you follow him on Twitter, or follow me on Twitter, he's one of the great follows that gives us updates like almost every time. And napakagalupit ng mga takes niya. So, without further ado, let's pull in our boy, D-Mac, NBA Fantasy Bible. Woohoo!
Happy, how are you, my friend?
Yeah,
How are
doing
you?
great,
Yeah.
doing great.
Oh, good to hear. Good to hear. Yeah, what a busy week of fantasy hoops it's been.
For sure, for sure. And not only in fantasy, the past games, especially today, there's a lot of solid games even in reality. I mean, it keeps getting better, and there's a lot of surprises. So there's a lot of
Absolutely.
things to talk about for sure.
I think since we last spoke as well, the Brooklyn Nets saga, Steve Nash is out the door. So that saga continues. So we'll see what happens. I think my pick for the Eastern Conference isn't looking very good at the moment, but who knows, with the new coach, they may actually improve their record.
Yeah, they're currently working with Josh Primo and Miles Bridges and Myers Leonard as we speak. So let's see what's going to happen there.
The best of the best.
Were you surprised? What's your initial reaction?
To be honest, I wasn't surprised. I think KD has been gunning for him for quite some time. And I think for him to say he was quite surprised or he wasn't aware of it is an absolute farce. But we digress. I think they move on. It's probably the best thing for all parties. But it'll be interesting to see what the fallout with Kyrie is with his own issues as well.
Do you consider Kyrie as a buy low with the current situation, or are you even interested?
Oh, who knows with this guy? He's such a moron, but tremendous basketballer, tremendous fantasy hoops guy. Good to have on your team, but who knows what's going to happen? If there's going to be a suspension, if it'll be NBA imposed or club imposed, or who knows what he'll do next. Very volatile situation. So for me, I'd probably stay away, but for some people, it may be a buy low situation. He's still a first rounder per game value, but who knows what's going to happen with this guy.
For sure, and I'm actually thinking if it's something that is it a good opportunity either to sell or to buy? So it's something I'm gonna check out in the upcoming days. Looking at it, it seems like people are trying to get rid of Kyrie, which is kind of like really logical. Because what if the commissioner, the NBA, and Brooklyn Nets does something about what about his takes outside of the court. So maybe it could result to a couple of days being suspended or whatnot. But and the last news I got was the Brooklyn Nets and Kyrie will actually donate something in a certain organization just to possibly neutralize what's been happening for the past days.
Absolutely.
Also to everyone that's watching, we can pwede tayo mag-Tagalog since DMAC uses a lineage as a Filipino lineage. So, pahirapan natin. Let's make DMAC here work with our questions. So, you can shoot any questions in Tagalog. So, to be honest, when I check our groups and also the messages that I got, majority of the questions are trade questions. So let me just start off with this DMAC. Tingnan natin kung anong take dito ni Papi DMAC. So there was a question for me regarding my thoughts about a trade involving Drew Holiday being traded or being acquired and for Gordon Hayward and Jamal Murray.
Mhm.
So this dude, Papi Christian Santos, is asking what's our thoughts about it.
Right. For me, it really depends on the league size. So if it's a 12-teamer, you know my thoughts, but you always go for the best player possible. So Drew Holiday is ranked 22nd. Gordon Hayward, we know himself is quite volatile. He's in a decent situation in Charlotte at the moment, but again, who knows what will happen? He's very injury prone. Jamal Murray, he's slowly ramping up, and he's getting better and better, but he won't get up to the level of Drew Holiday. So for me, if it's a 12-team league, it's Drew Holiday all the way.
So, quick question on that note. Um, are you confident that Drew Holiday won't be rested? Because Drew Holiday is a very underrated player in reality and in fantasy, right? We all know that. But I mean, just few days ago, he just exploded and gave us fantasy goodies. The only hole that people are trying to trying to kind of like incorporate with Drew Holiday is his boring, number one, for some, not for us. Number two is possible load management, given that
Mm.
Milwaukee Bucks kind of like did that in the past year. But thing is, in the past years, the situation is different because they actually played for the US for that year. So maybe it's kind of different this year. So maybe the reason why the Drew owner kind of like dealt him as well, might thought of that angle. But for you, DMAC, um, are you fine with Drew Holiday? Do you think it won't be as messy as last couple of years?
I don't think so. I think Milwaukee will be careful with their guys, and we know that Middleton is due back fairly soon. So Drew's currently playing 34 minutes a game. We could probably see that reduce, or he'll take a few days off here and there, similar to what Giannis has done with trying to preserve his energy and look after his knees as well. So I could see something similar with Drew, but it won't be to the level of what we've seen with people like Kawhi and PG, and for that matter, Jamal Murray in that trade situation. I think Jamal Murray is probably more likely to rest than Drew Holiday. Um, so it's an easy one for me. So I take the best player in that 12-team situation. Having said that, if it's a larger league where you're looking for greater depth, it is a viable option to take the two lesser players, but have that depth in a deeper league.
There you go. There you go. On my end, I'm with Dimac on this. So Papi Bruce mentioned, "Yo, Daniel, can you kind of like read this, bro?"
That's my cousin,
Oh, it's
Bruce.
your cousin.
Shout out to Bruce. That's my cousin. Good to hear from him. I'm glad he's tuning in. Send us some more questions.
Yeah. So he's saying hi, but in Tagalog. So can you read this
Yeah, yo,
Tagalog
Daniel
word?
Mackay. ¿Cómo está? ¿Cómo
Yeah,
está?
there you go. And then
I'm
at the
doing
end of the
well. Thank you
season,
very much.
at the end of the season, Dimac will know a lot of Filipino words for sure. So salamat, Papi Bruce. This is a associated question with the last question from David Tiangco. Drew for Lavin, fair trade?
Mm. Mm. It's fair, yeah, absolutely. There's no vetoing that one. There's no collusion whatsoever. It really depends. But again, for me, Drew's got that higher upside. Levine's had some injury concerns. He did play the back-to-back, which was surprising. Very unexpected today, which is great signs for his
Yeah.
health moving forward. But even if he was completely healthy and Drew was completely healthy, I'm taking Drew as the better player, I think, just with his stat set. He gives you defensive stats. Levine can explode, but there are probably more offensive weapons on the Chicago Bulls. So he may take a back seat to other guys on occasion, whereas Drew's very consistent. Obviously, Giannis being the alpha on that team, but Drew and then Middleton as well, they'll get their fair share. So for me, I would lean Drew, but it's definitely a fair trade.
Yeah, it just depends on what do you need for your team. Is it more of like the the stability of and defense of what Drew offers, or do you want more scoring from Zach Levine? Something to take note here is, of course, Zach Levine playing back to back. But then again, as Dimak mentioned, he surprisingly played back to back earlier. So another angle for me would be if you notice that almost everyone in your league kind of like values Drew and likes Drew as well. Given that Middleton is still out, maybe just maybe it's kind of like a mini sell high for Drew. So try to explore that. Again, for me, I would suggest that don't trade just for the sake of trading. It's more of like really trying to get a purpose every trade. But just in case someone is interested with Drew Holiday, because especially for Roto, is a very very good source of assist without really hurting you in several categories. Then you might end up really having a window of a mini sell high window for Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
Another question here in the messages. Mitch Robinson for Isaiah Jackson.
That's a tough one. We know that Mitch Robinson's had a rough start, but he's still ranked really highly. Obviously, the blocks being particularly sought after, but he's got a very competent backup in Isaiah Hartenstein, and he's doing really well as well. Isaiah Jackson, obviously, we know that he plays behind Miles Turner. That situation is still quite murky at the moment. So Miles Turner, probably everyone has seen what he said with Woj and other media members as well, how he'd love to entertain a trade to the Lakers. So who knows where that ends up. So at this stage, I think Mitch Robinson has the clearer role. He's a starter at the Knicks. But you could actually see a situation where Isaiah Jackson ends up as a higher rank. But for me, there's still that risk that he will play second fiddle to Miles Turner even until the end of the season. So I would still take Mitch, but it is close. And I think the upside for Isaiah Jackson's really high. We know what he can do in really a small amount of minutes as well. What do you think, Puppy Roy?
Yeah, for me in that type of trade, I also need some context. So I think we should also consider if is Mitch Robinson your main center, or is he your secondary center or third center? Because if he's like your third center or second center, I'm more comfortable of really flipping that just for the upside alone. If it's your main center, then you can still do that, but you have to really consider like what Dimac mentioned. You'll have several games or even weeks that Isaiah Jackson won't really give you enough value to be your main or primary center, right? So if you're fine with that, if you're really high on him just because of the possibility of Miles Turner getting traded, then it's fine. It's just really about a certain GM's tolerance on about certain players. But yeah, it's a fair trade for me. Generally, it's about kind of like the floor versus the upside. Also, if you think Hartenstein is going to really crush Mitch Robinson's value, being that the new Taj Gibson of the New York Knicks of Tom Thibodeau, then you do that. Because sometimes I kind of like think of other angles to for me to it's just talking myself just to ensure that I'm going to be happy on that trade. So yeah, but
Sure.
generally it's a fair trade. Um, Papi David Tiangco, Aldama still worth keeping?
He's still a streamer for me. I think he's come down in value, but even today he had a decent game. So if you need the blocks, you need the threes. He provides a little bit of scoring. Then pick him up. He's still a good streamer, but we know that his value is only going to be temporary. JJJ, we don't really know the clear timeline, but we expect him to come back at some stage. So Aldama's value will completely be gone for 12-team leagues. But I still think he's worth keeping if the end of your roster spot is pretty light on. But for me, he's still a good streamer, particularly with that stat set as well.
Yeah, I'll still hold him as well. And sometimes it's just about really understanding the case of the player that you drafted or you picked up. So when you drafted Aldama, I hope you didn't expect a lot because eventually it will come up to this wherein him and Brandon Clark will eventually have a 50-50 share time of the court. It just so happened that preseason in the first few games Aldama was really killing it. So that's the reason why it's about really your expectation. If you were expecting that Aldama will kind of like do that for the whole season without even Clark or even someone off the bench knocking in to get some minutes out of him, then I would understand that you really wanted to drop Aldama. But then again, generally speaking, I'll still keep him. If in 10 team, definitely drop him. In 12s, maybe if he's the worst player, then it's fine for me if you'll use that slot as a streaming slot because there will be days that other free agents will have a better value over Aldama, right? So yeah, that's my take there. Aldama actually was low key sell high in the first couple of weeks. Usually a tag sell high. Well, generally it's just sell. Because selling high is for me is kind of like subjective. Because it on the first place, it's hard to sell players, especially players that aren't household names like Aldama. So how do you sell high on Aldama? And in our GC in Mount Rushmore, we were talking. I was really sharing this thought that um uh it's hard for other GMs to trade for players that were picked up from FAs. Because for some reason, they think that hey, you just picked that from FA and now you're trading him for someone, I drafted. So, you know, trading for me is like a chess game. It's more of like a psychology over sometimes over the rankings. Just because even if you're super bright and so you have a super brilliant trade, it, it it's still it's still nothing unless the other party accepts it. So
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes it's more of like a psychological game and a sales game, right? So yeah, I get. But then again, if it's just like per value, I would keep Aldama.
And I guess a message for guys that are hesitant about making moves for guys that have been picked up off the wire. Just think back to Donovan Mitchell's rookie year. We know that he exploded, and a lot of people picked him up off the wire a couple of weeks into the season. So, it's not always the worst to trade for a guy that was picked up as a free agent or off the waiver wire.
Yeah. So before I read this for Papi Prestonardo, speaking of that, Ball. How do you value Ball currently?
He looks tremendous at the moment. He's playing 30 plus minutes at the moment, but that is with only really one point guard for the Orlando Magic. So because of that, he's getting more minutes, but he looks impressive. He's moved ahead of Mo Bamba as well as he's not even the backup center anymore, but he's moved ahead of Mo Bamba. So his skill set, the blocks are so valuable as well. And I think he's in the mid-round value now, which is amazing because every league that I was in, he was picked up off the wire. He went undrafted in all standard leagues that I was a part of. I know that we've all seen him. We've seen the potential. We've seen the hype for many years now, and it's coming to fruition. It's great to see him get those minutes.
For sure, because something that I love about Ball is he really stick or stuck with the NBA in the league. So that alone just shows me that he's someone that really kind of like as a worker compared to other players. That given that he was highly touted, especially with how his father's influence has in the league. He's a very well-known basketball player. So yeah, I'm super happy with Ball Ball. We were talking again in our GC that someone like Ball Ball is a player that I would trade by doing a smoke screen trade, meaning instead of doing a one-on-one trade, I'm gonna do a two-on-two and make him as a kicker just to elevate his value instead of
Mm.
making him the main piece. But then again, it's going to be hard because I really don't suggest trading just for the sake of trading. So it's more of like really if there's a purpose there, if you want to really upgrade ball, if you want to really kind of like just you don't believe that this will keep up, then fine, you can do that trade. But again, um, saying that Bol is a sell high or any player is a sell high is better is easier said than done. In reality, even if
Absolutely.
everybody's saying sell high, it's hard to pull it off, right?
It is hard.
Especially if
It is
you're
hard to make trades. Yeah, and a lot of people are very cautious around making trades, particularly for guys that haven't really established themselves over a long period of time. And there are some unknowns on that team as well. But if you can pull off a trade to sell high, awesome. If not, ride it out, enjoy the ride, because he's providing tremendous value.
bro, since you created your account in Twitter and other
Mm.
stuff that you have for fantasy in your local leagues in the leagues with your
Mm.
friends, are there any? Do you still get to trade? Or is it harder now?
Uh, I'm not even sure if the guys in my local league are aware of NBA Fantasy Bible. I think the commissioner is aware and he's probably told everyone else, but it is very difficult to trade. More often than not, the trades just go unanswered, get ignored, and that's okay. That's fine. But as the season progresses, I think people will be more willing to make some trades because pretty fair. And I look at both sides and look at the builds of both sides. I'm not trying to fleece anyone. It's just trying to make it a win-win situation.
There you go. Dimak here is a very very generous trader. Me, I'm just cordial and all, but I do believe in any trades there always will be one who is in advantage. But it's more of like really the fate on the players and the perspective. So it's a mind game for me, and I love it. I really love trading. I love
Yeah.
analyzing trades. Papi Press Leonardo, good evening mga paps. Just need to get out there as Seawood owner. J Kid, I love you as a player, man. But as a coach, uh, DJ Trip, he doesn't love J Kid as a coach. Si Silas din daw sa Houston, Cabanas. Pakawalan mo na ba pakawalan mo na si Tari. So Tari Eason, I remember I was planning before I got busy, I was planning to post several groups. So one of the groups are groups that I believe are second half players. That for me, I'm fine to really drop them just because I'm pretty sure I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure these players will kind of like hurt you when you kind of keep him, especially if you're on a standard or 14 deep leagues. And then I'm pretty sure he'll go picked up and then get dropped well like multiple times. And I was planning to put Tar Eason there just because of him being the preseason king. So people really were hyped about Tar Eason. But it's just really about reading the rotation of the Houston Rockets. So before Tari Eason, he got a couple of minutes in the first few games just because Deshaun Tate wasn't available yet. And then there were several games that he weren't actually he was bench over KJ Martin. And then when Deshaun Tate, his minutes get lower and lower. So that alone just shows you that it is not yet time. It doesn't mean that they don't trust Tari Eason or they don't think Tari Eason is a good player. I just think it's not yet the time. And recall how the Houston Rockets managed the rookies that they had last year. It's practically the same. They were using the Eric Gordons and who else were there last season. Before I mean, even Jan Walls uh, over the young gun. So that's how they do
Mm.
it. So I think that's a, a clue for us. But how about you, Dima?
Yeah, it's frustrating because I have Jabari Smith as well, so it is frustrating to see. But I think Jabari Smith's shooting has been atrocious. But I still see later in the season people like Tari preseason will get better, and he will definitely be a pickup in the second half of the season, particularly with the way that the season's going for Houston. It's looking like they could be a contender for Wemby, to be honest. They could be in that mode. I know it's still very early and they're looking a lot better, and Şengün looked awesome today. But who knows what will happen later in the season. So keep one eye open on Tari Eason, and who knows what will happen. But it's disappointing to see people like Jay Sean Tate and KJ Martin playing over him at the moment. But um, I think he's going to explode later in the season.
Agree. How about Christian Wood? Apparently, the Kobe Shaq comparison to Luka and Seawood isn't the that Lakers team. It's the Lakers team wherein it's about Kobe and other role players.
Right.
So, what do you think
Right.
about Christian Wood, bro?
I think he's still great. I think he's a really good player, and I think he's the type of personality, from what I can understand of him, that he's still going to be gunning for that Sixth Man of the Year award. So he's going to be
Yeah,
putting up a lot of effort. I don't think he's solidified himself as a star of the NBA yet. He's definitely by no means a star. He's a very solid role player, and he's probably a worthy number two. But he does need to pick up his game. And it was only probably a week ago that we were singing his praises. So I think a week is a long time in NBA, but we just need to have a little bit of patience with him. And I think he's looking really good. And I still think he's your pick,
yeah.
the favorite for Sixth Man of the Year.
And aside from that, I do believe that if you just look at how Dallas Mavericks is being designed, you can easily tell that Christian Wood is their second best player. So that
Mm.
alone should give you, should give you the reason to really still be happy of owning Christian Wood. Again, this is a case of about really the expectation versus the reality. Because again, during the preseason, without Luka Doncic, Christian Wood actually, gave us a lot of a glimpse of how what he is as a player, especially on what we saw back in the Houston Rockets days and even before he parted ways with the Detroit Pistons. But that's without Luka Doncic. It's going to be different with Luka Doncic. Sometimes he'll get a big night, but sometimes he won't do that. Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to step up. Spencer Dinwiddie is going to step up. Again, how I see the team, it's just Luka Doncic and the role players. I can't really say that he's the Robin to Luka Doncic, but talent-wise, he should, based on the roster.
I think so. I think he's a better real life player than he's fantasy, unless you're punting free throws, which you are in our league, Roy.
Yeah.
So I think you'd
That's,
still be very happy with his production.
surprisingly, Christian Wood in the past few games was efficient, but well, it fell down after a couple of games. I thought it's a start of something, but maybe in the long run, when it gets accumulated.
Yeah.
Papi Mark Joseph Masopol, good eve, Paps. Did I win a trade bum for my CJ Mac, and what value I can get for Jonas Valanciunas? A trade Bam for, so you got Bam Adebayo for CJ Mac. Yeah, Bam Adebayo is a first round, uh, solid second round value. Um, again, the reason why I mentioned first round because I was thinking that I was about to say that there are several first round big mans that are there just because of their ability to be efficient. And I believe DMAC was able to mention this in our past episode. And after that run in the first round, Bam should be one of, I think Bam is the next efficient big man, right? In the second round, who else is there? Yeah, I guess it's going to be Bam.
It's going to be Bam. You could argue Cat is a second rounder now.
Oh
He's
yeah, yeah.
fairly efficient.
If Cat is a second rounder, definitely Cat is should be the front runner.
Yeah, I think Bam's side wins this one. I think his upside is higher than CJ McCollum. McCollum is still a very solid player. So I think, again, it's a very fair trade. And looking at the rankings, I know Bam started off really slowly and his turnovers for a big guy. And we know he tries to be a playmaker from the center position, but his turnovers have been quite high for a center. But again, a lot of people punt turnovers, so they don't care. So Bam's a really solid player, and I would take that Bam side quite easily.
And if some people think that this trade should be vetoed just because of Bam, your first rounder, and you're trading away just CJ McCollum. If I was the commissioner and this was traded back when Bam isn't really playing well, I am a commissioner that actually gives credit to those GMs that recognizes a perfect time. So if it was actually, traded in my league, I would approve this with respect to the timing. Also, before I usually approve the trades, I always ask the parties involved that, hey, what's the logic behind? So if it's just a buy low, and then if the other party is saying that, hey, I don't think Bomb is going to be good this season, and if it doesn't impact the whole league, well, it's early in the league, but if it doesn't smell like a collusion, then it's fine with me. I really kind of like value GMs that are giving an effort to strike an opportunity whenever there's a buy low and sell. A
Absolutely.
follow-up question
And
here,
I'm
Dimak was, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I'm very big on not vetoing trades, even if you're vetoing for stupidity. I think you would only veto in the event that it was clear collusion as well. And sometimes that's hard to prove. But I like your approach of asking the managers what their thought process was and what's their logic behind that. I think that's a pretty good approach. But if a league thinks there's a one-sided winner, again, I don't think you can veto those unless it's collusion.
Agree. And he also mentioned that how would we value Jonas Valanciunas right now?
Yeah,
How would you
he's
value
losing
Jonas?
minutes. Yeah, he started off like a house on fire, but he's losing minutes rapidly to Larry Nance. We even saw it today. I think Larry Nance played 30 plus minutes and Jonas was in the low to mid 20s, which is really disappointing. He's more a mid rounder now for me. And I think with Zion getting healthy, a few more guys, Ingram coming back into the team shortly as well, some other guys stepping up, also Nance playing a lot more minutes. Where he currently is, I think he's still in the top 50. He could actually balloon out to maybe top 60, top 70. But I still think he's a solid player and he's very efficient. He doesn't get the blocks that you'd like, but very efficient, can still get a lot of rebounds, get a lot of points. But that's around the value that I think he is end of season.
Agree. And this is something that we should have like thought of before the season started. Because remember, I guess there was an episode that I was actually mentioning. Even in last year, I was mentioning that Zion Williamson is not that good in terms of defense. Being a good blocker for me doesn't mean as a whole you're a good defender. So with my belief on that, I do think that partnering him with Jonas Valanciunas, who isn't a defensive center, would really be a problem in several situations. So possibly Willie Green, knowing he's a good coach, recognizes that, which is the reason why Larry Nance is getting minutes. Because we all know Larry Nance is, Swiss Army knife. I really love Larry Nance, not only in fantasy, but also in reality. He was a very good Cavalier leader. Back when he was in the Cavaliers, it wasn't Darius Garland's team. It was Larry Nance's team. It was the most popular Cavalier in the Cleveland. So yeah, I've been following him. He was a very, very good guy.
I've had a
Yeah,
lot of shares of Larry Nance over the years, even from his time at the Lakers. I thought he was a great fantasy player, probably a better fantasy player than real life. But yeah, I've had a lot of shares of Larry Nance over the years.
yeah, and he's someone that gives you a out of position assist and steal. So very very solid
Yeah.
fantasy player. Papi Dwayne, what's up? He was telling here, Paps, wala na akong AD. May nag-offer ng cut, inaccept ko na agad. So I was thinking of this trade as well. He actually got rid of AD by getting cut.
Mm.
Me, I would have done that just for the sake of, but just for the sake of our 10th category in 9 cut leagues, which is peace of mind. So I think peace of mind is a valuable category. So yeah, for me, it's a good trade for me, just because of that category.
Yeah, I like that category. So yeah, cat for me. And every time I see an update on Twitter, AD to the locker room, it just always makes me very nervous, and it happens often.
Next one here, Puppy Mark. Oh, it was already answered. Next one, Papi Carlito Reyes. Tyrese Halliburton to Jalen Brown and Bol Bol. Fair trade?
Hmm.
I I'll I'll snatch the max answer. It actually depends on the size. But generally I won't trade Tyrese Halliburton. We haven't really seen what he can do. Imagine when Buddy Hield and Miles Turner gets traded. I would assume he gets better than what he's currently doing right now. Um, Also, it's also about the negative impact that Jalen Brown brings. So when you trade a very efficient player like Tyrese Halliburton, and in given that you drafted him, I would assume that you actually um, designed your team in accordance to your main player, right? So if that's the case, wherein your theme in your team is efficiency, then you get a Jalen Brown who actually, isn't that good in field goal percentages and especially with free throw percentage as a scorer, then that's going to skew what you prepared of during your draft. But yeah, how about you, bro?
Yeah, again, it depends on the size of the league. Jalen Brown's had an electric start to the season, but even with that start, he's only the 33rd ranked player, whereas Halliburton's 14th. And like you said, he's just going to get better and better, particularly if they clear the way with Buddy Hield, like you said. Um, Potentially Russell Westbrook comes back, but I wouldn't see Russ even setting foot um, on the court for the Pacers as well. So yeah, for me, it's an easy one. It's Tyrese Halliburton, and again, too many question marks around Bol Bol. Like we just said, fantastic at the moment, but with a few guards to come back, there's a few question marks around the chemistry of the Magic when Cole Anthony and Suggs has only just come back, plus Markel Fultz still to come back. So there's a lot to go under the bridge with that one.
Yeah, and we have to mention the player that Josh's Josh Lloyd doesn't want to mention, Jonathan Isaac. What
Mm,
if
mm,
surprisingly, he's done writing books, so he'll definitely play. So
right.
there's a lot of things, a lot of consideration there. Papi Andre Sarmiento, DeRozan for Lavine, and Ben Simmons dropping Rui. You go first, bro.
Mm. It's a strange fit. You're going Levine and Ben Simmons, so you've got a guy that's great in terms of efficiency. DeRozan's also got great efficiency, slightly different skill set to Levine, but then you've got Ben Simmons. So it'll be interesting to see if Andre wants to share the team, but be interesting to see what the build of that team is. I don't mind it, DeRozan for Levine and Ben Simmons though, because assists are very hard to find. And Ben Simmons is just going to get better. He's just come back. There is a chance that he sits more games. There is this health concern at the moment. But DeRozan for Levine, I think that's pretty fair in itself. I actually don't mind it, to be honest. Roy?
Yeah, again, almost similar to what Dimag mentioned. Just for me, it's more of like really understanding the reason behind. Because again, we drafted our teams in our fantasy leagues for a certain theme or a certain design. So sometimes you think I mean, what I'm trying to say is, getting a good player doesn't necessarily mean they are helping your team. So it doesn't always equate to winning or your team getting better. So you should understand the weakness and the strengths of your team That's the reason why I really encourage you guys not to trade just for the sake of trading. There should always be a purpose. So if generally if you Papi and they whatever you get from here you got a Lavin for Ben Simmons to your team. If those two helps you out, then you actually win it. For me, that's the it's super subjective. Trades are super subjective. I rarely veto trades. It's just about really understanding that hey, all of us are adults here. As long as there's no collusion. If you really, if even the reason is hey, I'm a big fan of Zach Lavine. I'm going to die if I don't have Zach Lavine in my team, and it's going to be hard for me to follow NBA. It's a fine reason for me, as long as it's not about it's the playoffs is coming and you're trading with the first rank and you're out of the contention, then that's a very very colluded trade. Then I won't allow that. But then again, it's a fair trade for me.
I still think DeRozan for Levine would be a fair trade, to be honest. I think they're pretty close in their rankings. So throw in Ben Simmons. Yeah, why not?
Freebie, right?
Worst case, you drop him.
The only thing that, and by the way, looking at it, he was about to drop Rui. So he got a lot of scorer because DeRozan and then Rui. So getting a Ben Simmons pumps his assists here. Papi Jomai, good evening. Question is Tobias Harris, who's the same trade value of him right now for head-to-head 9-cat DP. Who is the same trade value? For me, trade value is subjective. Possibly the best answer here is to check out the rankings. So I bet DMAC has. Do you have?
I do. He's
visibility of
37th.
players. Yeah.
He's 37th.
Any
on
players
Basketball Monster.
within that area?
Yeah. Yeah, but even just speaking of Tobias, I think 37. That's not sustainable. I think he's had a few games now with Embiid sitting. I think D'Anthony Melton had a game off today as well. So Tobias has exploded in a couple of games here and there, while Embiid has sat. So I think 37th is a bit of an anomaly. I think that'll be closer to that 75, potentially even later than that. If you could sell high on him, there's some guys around him which I'd probably much prefer. Embiid is actually lower than him. I know you'd never pull that trade off, but Embiid's actually ranked 42nd in 9-cat, which is pretty unbelievable as well. But someone like Michael Porter Jr., he's 44th. Brandon Ingram, 47th. I'd much rather have Ingram than Tobias Harris. I think there's greater upside. Oh, here's one. We just spoke about him earlier, Jonas Valanciunas. He's 48th. Who would you rather have, Roy?
To be honest, I have what I call a hidden upside. I think Tobias Harris and Jonas Valanciunas both has hidden upside. Just because if, knock on the wood, Joel Embiid goes down or Zion Williamson goes down, their value goes up. So I would say that's a fair trade. Depending on the format, of course, Tobias Harris known to be that balanced type of player. Has is more appealing in Roto. So if you want to trade away Tobias or trade for Tobias, the value there is higher in that format. If it's in 9-cat, given that it's hard to really build depending on the size of the league, if it's hard to get to sell Tobias Harris in head to head just because he doesn't have certain stats that can you know that influences your team strongly. Like for example, Jamorant influencing points and assists, stuff like that, or Harden influencing assists. So Tobias Harris doesn't have that arsenal, but then again, he does he's usually healthy. He is balanced. So the only case here before we move to the next question is Tobias Harris is a player that almost majority of the people thinks he's a boring player. So that's the reason why it's really hard to sell Tobias Harris. That's just my observation. Because sometimes the rankings and the trends doesn't kind of like work to all GMs in terms of trade. sometimes it's how they perceive this player. That hey, this is a boring trade. I don't like it. Even though he generally he wins the trade. So it's just actually understanding a lot of considerations in terms of trade. But again, in terms of value, Dimac already mentioned those players.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that his turnovers is 0.7 per game, so that's inflating his 9 cat value, and his steals at 1.4. I don't think that's sustainable. I think he's that's a bit of a fluke as well. So I could see that coming down. So I would. We spoke about Jonas. I'd rather take Jonas Valanciunas over Tobias, but you know, it again comes down to your needs for your team.
Agree. Papi Rico Martin, pa-shoutout po sa Fantasy Reklamo Group. Shoutout Fantasy Reklamo Group. This is the fantasy basketball group wherein it is open for everyone to shame on any player or rant on any player. So if that DMAC you're having a bad day and you want to you want to shame or rant about any player, just join this group. Speaking of that,
I will.
DMAC, who is the
Yes.
player that you kind of like want to shame or hate, or you're kind of like angry in the past few
Yeah.
weeks?
I'll speak of the last week, Jabari Smith. But I can't drop him. We know that he's got great upside in that skill set, but man, oh man, it's very frustrating right now. What about you?
Oh, I also have several shares of Jabari Smith. I also agree on that. The first few games wherein he got several blocks, I was really wow. This was a good choice. And then the percentage started killing me, and then now he was uh there are several games that is about to getting a status of getting injured or something, or some updates on that, and then getting lesser minutes and all, and then you're looking at several players in that area that you weren't able to pick. So yeah, I do understand you being picking on Jabari Smith. But then again, let's talk about this second half of the season. I'm pretty sure Dimac is much happier. Papi Moderas Charles, what's up, Paps? Question is, should I drop Jalen Williams for Barton? So as one of the Jalen Williams fan, and he's one of my guy, I don't suggest for you to drop Jalen Williams for Barton. But then again, that's just me. Does Barton help your team by any means? Because looking at it, Jalen Williams is the upside. Jalen Williams in the his first game, as not on the game that he was injured, but more of like after his injury, he got what, 3 steals, I guess, or 4 steals in that game. He is a good facilitator. The fact that the OKC Thunder allowed him to be in the starter lineup just shows that they also recognize his potential. So if or when the OKC Thunder, do their usual tanking, I think Jalen Williams is one of the players that, safe until the last 2 weeks of the season. So that's just me. So I'll let DMAC share his thoughts.
I completely agree. Barton's really boring this season. I don't think they trust him, even with more facilitating that he could be doing right now. He's actually not doing it without Delon right there, which is very strange. But yeah, I'd take Jalen Williams every day of the week. I think that upside that you spoke about is he could be easily a top 100 player. So I would
Yeah,
retain him.
there you go. Peacock. I think Mobley is a good sleeper pick. Yeah, I would agree on that on a certain level, but I would love to still observe how the Cavaliers play in the upcoming games, because finally they are finally healthy given that Darius Garland is back. Initially, I was kind of like, I like Mobley, but I'm not keen on reaching to get Mobley on my team. Just because I was also trying to think that, given that Donovan Mitchell comes in the picture and Mobley's value last year was actually heavily impacted or influenced by the usage that he got. So I do understand Mobley is a good player, but would he at least get the same amount of usage that he got last year, and up to what extent? So the answer might definitely be no, just because of having Donovan Mitchell in the team. Another thing is the blocks. Would he retain the block rate that he have? With those questions, I understand he's a good player, but I wasn't really keen on reaching to Mobley. But if he's available in that area, I would definitely would have picked him. But I guess a lot of people are high on him because I don't have any Mobley stocks in all of my leagues. How about you, bro? Do you have any Mobley in your team?
I've got none. I'd love to trade for him, and he was going far too high for my liking. But just keep in mind that he's only blocking one shot a game, so that can easily come up. And his percentages are looking really good. His free throw percentages at 80%, which is a vast improvement from last season. So I think he's got scope to move up the rankings. And yeah, good sleeper pick if we're already thinking about next season. But even a buy low, I know he's performed a lot better in the last few games, but he's still a buy low for me.
Yeah, especially the timing. The timing we're in. The spotlight is on Donovan Mitchell and now Darius Garland coming in. So Mobley owners would have think that, hey, maybe Mobley's game will go down or whatnot. So that adds to your buy low opportunity to actually get even. Papi PG Santos, Paps, since you're a Spurs fan, what are your thoughts on them possibly shutting down Keldon and Vassell? There's a chance of them doing that. I doubt they will do that as early as now. But expect the worst in terms of fantasy for the San Antonio Spurs. We actually kind of like witnessed it in the past few games where even a certain lingering something on their body, they will eventually be out to rest or to whatever to do whatever thing. It's almost like how OKC handled SGA. I think wherein if SGA says that, oh, I have a lingering elbow, SGA will kind of like rest for a week. I'm expecting that kind of treatment, but possibly not yet. But I'm expecting that to happen like very, very soon. Another thing about Keldon and Vassell, I also believe that Keldon has a path to be at least in the All-Star ballot or All-Star contention in the first half of the season. That goes as well with Basel. So let's just get back together during that All-Star break because I would actually strategically sell my Keldons and Vasels during that time. Just to be safe. Again, looking at that 10th category, which is peace of mind. I do understand the upside, but then again, if you want just to be really safe, then I would suggest for you to do it. Are you a fan of that strategy, Dima?
I like that strategy, particularly if you want that peace of mind and lack of stress. But on the other hand, it's a great opportunity to buy low. I think they've
Yeah.
got a lot of basketball to play this season. Um, not sure about them tanking from the get go. And Keldon's already had a solid start to the season. I think they've got a lot to play for early. I'm just worried about Vassell's knee, and it is concerning that he's been out several games. I think he is questionable for the next game, which is a better sign. And they haven't ruled him out already. Same goes for Keldon Johnson. I think Keldon will definitely be back next game, we're hoping. But Vassell, watch this space. But I'd be looking to buy low at this stage. But yeah, like you said, maybe around All-Star break is a nice time to see if you can offload them. But again, not many people, now that you've mentioned it in public, maybe people are onto that, Roy.
Okay. I also love that tip from Dima. Sometimes you have to really counterflow the trend. So if everyone's trying to sell, then you buy low. So and then see what happens. Despite these assumptions, we still don't know. Even the best fantasy analyst or even the NBA analyst doesn't know what's going to happen. So let's just have some fun doing our own analysis. Ryan, Jerome, Kale, Paps, Lods, Howard plus DSJ for Vanderbilt and Robin Williams. So Hayward and Dennis Smith Jr. for Vanderbilt and Robin Williams. The value currently is with Hayward and DSJ. It's going to be different when Robin Williams is unfortunately is not in the earth anymore. So is this that Robin Williams? But I think this is Robert Williams rather. So if it's Robert Williams being healthy, it's a different case. I guess I Vanderbilt. I'm thinking he is actually in my buy low list for Vanderbilt. I'm expecting bigger things for Vanderbilt. Um, hmm. I would think that I'd rather have Vanderbilt than Robert Williams here, just because of the possibility of a random injury of Gordon Hayward, and then Dennis Smith Jr. The moment that Terry Rozier comes back, it's and possibly Lamelo Ball coming back. So where does Dennis Smith Jr.'s value go, right? So it's basically just Gordon Hayward for Vanderbilt and Robert Williams. So Robert Williams upside, we all know what he can do. And then if like what I mentioned, I think Vanderbilt is a buy low right now.
Yeah, some good thoughts there. I think it also depends on if you do have an IO or IR slot for Robert Williams. If you do, I think it's a pretty good play. Again, they're very different. So you're changing the structure of your team. So you really need to be mindful of how that impacts the rest of your team and the makeup of the team. We know Robert Williams' upside, but again, when he comes back, he'll be looked after carefully, particularly if they want him to play in the playoffs. It's a tough one. I think Dennis Smith Jr. actually does have some value when Rozier and LaMelo come back. Maybe not 12-team value, but with those defensive stats, he could be a back-end 12-team guy. Who knows? It's a tough one. I may actually go against you. I might go the Hayward DSJ route at this stage. I do like Vanderbilt in that trade, just because it looks like he's got the edge as the starter there. Yeah, I'm going to go the Hayward DSJ, but it is line ball.
There you go. Finally, a situation wherein we pick the other sides here. So yeah, just check which direction or which kind of like thought of train of thought do you agree on, Papi Ryan? So you have two options here. Um, Couple more questions before we end our episode. We're trying to do this episode within an hour. So, Papi Kristen, Duke, AD for Cade, good deal. I would say yes, just because of the peace of mind. I am now in that mood to try to get a healthier player. So if I could get Cade, the discrepancy of the value would be different depending on, again, if you have a lot of bigs or you have a lot of point guards. Because if you have a lot of point guards and that's a head-to-head format, I was thinking that's going to be an overkill, right? So if you're already winning assists and winning possibly steals or points, so what could Cade help you then, right? So if that's the case, then again, this is one of the situations that, in some sense, you get possibly a better player just in case knock on the wood AD goes down. But then again, your team didn't actually, didn't actually get better, and then it might not lead to win. So the context of what your team is should be there, but I would entertain this trade. How about you, bro?
I'm taking the best player. So I'm taking AD. I know he's got those concerns around his health. He's looking really sharp this season. Who knows? Maybe Cade gets injured as well. It's just something that you can't really predict. And yeah, AD's shown a propensity to get injured, but he's a fifth ranked player in 9-cat this season. Yeah, and he's had that history of being the number one ranked player. So I'm taking AD, particularly if it's Roto. If it's head to head, I'm probably still taking AD a little bit more hesitantly, but I would still take him over Cade. Perhaps you could get a better trade for AD if you did want to relieve yourself of that pressure. Cade's look good, but his 9-cat rankings don't really reflect that. If you don't care about turnovers, then he is obviously ranked a lot higher, but I think you could even do better than Cade.
Yeah, try to do that, but I mean, especially here in our country, it's when you talk about AD, especially after the drafts, his value goes really low. It's, players that were tagged as injury prone, even way back, when Joel Embiid wasn't really contending for the MVP. You can actually the value of Joel Embiid is very low just because of that injury scare, to the point that the following year when he performed very well, he was one of the reason why a lot of teams won, just because of the tendency of really uh, trying to get healthy players. But what, like Mac mentioned, it's hard for us to foresee if even Cade or even who is the I mean, Dame was one time the Iron Man of the league, right? And then he got injured. So that's gonna happen. Hopefully not, but we don't know what's gonna happen basically. Papi Joseph Hernandez, Chris Paul for my Valanciunas.
Mm.
I'd rather have, well, it's two players that gives you different things, but I would at this point I would rather have Chris Paul, as you're especially in well, in any format I would rather have Chris Paul actually.
I agree. I agree. And I think we spoke about Jonas losing value as the season progresses. Chris Paul's ranked 50th at the moment. He started off not wanting to shoot. His field goal percentage is putrid at the moment at just under 36% as well. So he's getting better and better. And of course, we've spoken about scarcity of assists. So yeah, I'd take Chris Paul in that situation.
Papi Dwight Nino, if Utah unloads their veteran guards, will benefit more apart from Sexton, maybe THT. So that's a big if, because they there were news that they wanted to keep Jordan Clarkson, right? So that's going to be a bummer to all backcourt players, even Sexton. But looking at it, it's more of like really the ones that are actually providing value right now. The likes of Laurie Markkinen, maybe Jared Vanderbilt, the lunch lady, Kelly Olynyk, maybe Walker Kessler. But yeah, it's a long shot for now. And also, it's going to be hard for you to keep THT if you opt to monitor. Just put a star on THT just in case Conley gets traded or other gets traded. So I would say possibly if that happens, yeah, I would agree it could be THT as long as Malik Beasley also goes out, and who else? Other, yeah, Kelly Olynyk maybe THT, because THT can actually do some point forward role, so he could be that guy. And then you have Sexton, you have Laurie Markkinen, you have Kessler, and then who else should be left there? But yeah, there's
Nikhil
a good
Alexander
chance.
Walker.
Yeah, now. So yeah, that's also an option. And also Butler. Butler was actually has some good run during his rookie seasons. So I guess if I were the Utah Jazz, I would like to see what he can do when opportunity comes. But it's hard to foresee. But maybe HD, fine, sure. Paps, is Isaiah Jackson must hold? I guess we've already kind of like answered that. Uh, Papi JC,
Yes.
should I drop John Wall in head to head?
For me, yes. I think he'll miss games, and even when he is playing, he's not giving the value that you were hoping to get this season. I know he's got great name value, so if you could potentially sell just on name value alone, go for it. If no one's buying it, then yeah, I'd be dropping him. And even if streaming that slot is more valuable, but there's a lot of good free agents. I wouldn't be holding on to John Wall just for the sake of having John Wall on your team.
Yeah, especially in 12 teams. I would agree on that. But I would assume that there will be runs that John Wall gives value, and then Arjax doesn't do that, and then the other couple of weeks Arjax does give value, and then John Wall goes down. So it's going to be a roller coaster ride for the backcourt of uh, Los Angeles Clippers. Thoughts on Christian Wood? I guess we've kind of like touched this, Puppy. Mark Kevin, still a hold, definitely, unless it's an 8. 8-team lead, 8-team league, I guess, or 4-team league. Papiral Cedillo, Poco, still worth a spot in 16-team league. Um,
Yes,
I would I would say yes. How about you, bro?
absolutely, absolutely. I think he's almost getting to the point where you have to consider him in 12 teams. He's looked really good uh, the last game, and let's see how he goes tomorrow as well. But yeah, I think definitely in 16 teams, even 14 teams, it's looking like he's solidifying himself in that team at OKC. 12 teams, it's line ball. I know that people have picked him up in 12 teamers, so definitely in the 16 team.
And also, whenever you're trying to decide on if this free agent is worth keeping, it's about really understanding the projection of that player historically as well as the upside. So it's a balance on that. So if you think that hey, the upside or the ceiling of this player is this amount, then you check the whole free agent pool, then you can actually decide that hey, out of all the 50 possible players that I could add, he has the most upside. He can actually provide me this value. Then you pick him up just because of that reason. Other stuff, it's just about really possibly the grind of really checking free agents every day, and sometimes luck. Like you're just basically streaming, and then that player goes off. So last two questions here, Papa Isaiah James. Any thoughts on Taibul? Want to get him on my 16 team 9 cat, but his playing time. Yeah. I let DMAC answer this first, but generally
Mm.
for me, it's not looking good.
It's not looking good. He's not providing much. Even his defensive stats have been pretty poor when he has played, when he's been in the rotation this season. I know he played today, um, but I guess Embiid was out. D'Anthony Melton was out as well. I probably wouldn't even bother because that looks like a headache to me.
Yeah, it seems there were rumors that they're trying to also trade Taibul. So let's see. Let's see. Good in some sense. It just shows that the Anthony Melton really has a solid value for the Philadelphia 76ers in both reality and fantasy. So good news
Right.
for the Anthony Melton owners. Mabibras Leonardo, sira ba ang Yahoo? Hindi pumapasok ang waivers and still shows end of the day two results. So possibly let's just check. Maybe we can tag our Yahoo Twitter accounts. I usually tag them. I haven't really
Mm.
checked, but yeah, me and Dimac will definitely check that one out. Especially Dimac. I'm pretty
I've
sure.
seen a few notifications, just a few a few tweets, people having issues with Yahoo at the moment. So it's not isolated to yourself. It looks like they're having some concerns today.
Yeah, possibly the main admin doesn't want to ensure that the player in this FA league won't be picked up by other admins. The admins are playing us, guys. Thanks mga Papas Papi Press. And last question of this first Q&A episode. Thanks for the help, guys. Who to IR? Robert Williams the third or Triple J? Only one IR in our team, 16 man. Ooh, tough one. Uh, ah, I would love to say Triple J, but are you ready to get heartbroken again by the medical staff and PR team of the Memphis Grizzlies? Because time and time again, even Triple J tweets something very optimistic and all, and then they ended up playing after 3 months instead of the promise of playing after 1 week or so. With that said, I might go to Robert Williams just because I think the Boston needs him. So and then the first update of these two players seems like Robert Williams is a more optimistic medical update, but I'm not sure it. For me, it's a toss coin, but I'm picking Time Lord. How about you, Dimac?
I'll take Time Lord as well. I think when he does come back, even though they will, as I mentioned before, they'll take care of him. They won't play him huge minutes. I still think he'll have more value to start off with than Triple J. And like you said, it's hard to trust what's coming out of there with JJJ, and we've seen it before a couple of seasons back, and it's burnt a lot of people. So that's at the forefront of our memories. So I'll go Robert Williams.
There you go. And that's going to be our final question. And then let's just check D-Mac's cousin here. Hello, mga paps, and my cousin. Just tuned in again. Great show. Keep it up. Cheers. Thanks.
Thank you, Bruce.
Papi Bruce. I hope everyone like this concept. So this is what's gonna happen next. So moving forward, of course, we have our usual weekly review with DMAC. So that's going to stick for the whole season. And then Q&A, every time DMAC is available, he'll definitely be in the show. But we'll also give other opportunities to other friends, even you guys who wanted to step here. So let's start off with inviting the GMs that me and DMAC is competing in our Mount Rushmore League. So possibly in the upcoming weeks, I would like to invite the likes of Jonas Nader, Zach Hanshu, and other NBA fantasy analysts internationally that are available, hoping to get them in the show. And then also other local personalities as well, the previous champions from our FBPH leagues. So at least we have a diverse perspective in terms of how they value players and how they strategize for fantasy. Okay, so Dimak, any parting words?
Just thinking of Jonas Nader, ask him the question about Robert Williams versus JJJ. We think, wow, we know where he'd go for that one.
That's his prodigal son.
That's right. That's right. And then with Zach, with Halliburton as well, the earlier question with Halliburton, we know his love affair with Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah, and Keegan Murray. Who's your prodigal son, bro?
Oh, it's Tyrese. Yeah, I'm with Zach. Absolutely. I love Tyrese Halliburton only because I picked him up in the mid 60s in my keeper league last season. So that's looking fantastic at the moment.
Wow, 2 daddies for Tyrese Halliburton. The majority of my sons are Spurs, but I'm sticking with SGA, bro. I'm killing you.
SGA, sure,
I'm
man.
telling you, SGA.
Still the number one guy. Still the number one. Sell high. Sell high.
It won't last. I know it won't last. So I'm savoring it.
Absolutely.
Possibly last point, given that SGA was mentioned. How do you sell SGA?
Yeah, I think most players that play fantasy these days are onto the fact that he's not going to be the number one fantasy guy come the end of the season, plus the likelihood of him sitting a few games, if not an extended period with whole Wemby sweepstakes as well. It's a tough one. I don't know. What do you think his value is? If you could sell him now, are you aiming for a second rounder or a third rounder? What do you think?
I'm gonna trade him straight up for Fred VanVleet.
Interesting. Because Fred VanVleet himself is quite injury prone as well. So I think you could do better than that. I know Fred VanVleet's ranked really highly, but yeah, has he finished the season healthy often and played a lot of games? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, because he'll be getting additional 5 games over SGA. So you're trading for additional 5 games.
Perhaps. Plus, he's playing 40 minutes a game at Toronto. We all know about that.
Or trade him for Kyrie Irving.
Oh, that would be great. If I could see that happen, that would be very interesting.
Right? That's a good idea. I don't like to trade him for Kawhi. I would do a bundle to get Joel Embiid. But basically, what we're trying to say, Dimac and me is trying to say here, all of the players that people doesn't like or are afraid from, try to get that for SGA. Yeah, so if you have SGAs, I guess those are options. But again, thank you so much, DMAC. Twitter handle NBA Fantasy Bible. Where else we can see you? Where else can we see you, bro?
That's where I'm doing most of my work. I do have a YouTube channel, but at the moment I'm focusing my work with yourself, Roy. But I will get my own content going at some stage, and I'd love to get the viewers' opinion on what type of content. I don't want to be the same with yourself, and I love appearing on your show. So maybe some shorter grabs as well on a daily basis, and who knows what could happen from this stage. But at this stage, loving being on your show. So thank you.
There you go. So I'm voting because I'm planning to do TikTok contents for the daily information for fantasy. So let's pull DMAC to TikTok. We're going to dance there while saying that pick up, pick up.
I'll get my
players.
dances going. Yeah.
I can't do. I can't see myself doing that. But let's see. Let's see. It's going to be fun. So thank you so
Yeah.
much, everyone. Thank you so much, DMAC. Let's again. I've already posted the schedule that hopefully I'm going to do, given that I have more vacant time right now. So that's going to be. I remember it's always 8 p.m. So every Mondays, that's going to be our English episode, the weekly review with NBA Fantasy Bible himself, DMAC. Every Thursdays Q&A. Every Saturdays and Sundays, I'm going to have a around the world ups and downs of all the teams for Saturday Eastern Conference and for Sunday Western Conference. So any updates for positional battles, rookies, veterans, injuries, trades for every team, at least Eastern Conference and Western Conference. I'm going to do that for you guys. So hopefully I get more time, and I hope my boss and my teammates in my company isn't watching right now, because I should be in a meeting right now. So there you go. So thank you so much. By the way, good luck, Papi, DMAC, for your tomorrow's agenda, going back to your office already, right? So
Yes.
have a
Absolutely.
good sleep, bro.
Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
There you go. Thank you so much, everyone. Again, this has been your Fantasy Papi Roy with NBA Fantasy Bible himself, DMAC. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.